Hello students, good morning. Let's continue our poem Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. We have studied its 7 stanzas. Today we are going to read out our 8th stanza. Let not ambition mock their useful toil, their homely joys and destiny obscure, nor grandeur here a disdainful smile, the short and simple annals of the poor. As we can see that in this stanza, more figurative language is used as it has been used in earlier stanzas. The speaker personifies ambition and grandeur in these lines. You can clearly see that the poet has capitalized them as though they were proper nouns or names. And he says that they are doing stuff like mocking and here that only people do. The speaker is telling the readers that they should not mock the hard work or the homely, simple pleasures or the unsung, obscure destinies of the poor farmers in the graveyard. But he does not come out and tell the readers to lay off the mockery. Instead, he says that they shouldn't allow ambition to mock them, and he is sort of displacing the blame. He should blame the people, proud people, wealthy persons, but here he is saying it to ambition. Thus, he is displacing the blame. Regular people wouldn't mock these honest guys. Same thing is here in the second line of this stanza, where the speaker says that we should allow grandeur or high social status to smile disdainfully or scornfully at the day-to-day accounts of the poor people. In the next stanza, the boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, and all that beauty, all that wealth overgave, awaits like the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead to the grave. Here we can say that the boast means in Hindi we can say dinge hankna, and the word heraldry means Vansavali. Look into this stanza. Here in the real here is the real reason why the speaker doesn't want proud, ambitious, grand people to make fun of the poor people in the churchyard. It is because we are all heading the same someday to the death. The word heraldry means the coat of arms. Coat of arms means a sign of family associated with the old aristocratic families. Pomp means proud, meaningless ceremony. Basically, any ceremony designed to make people feel proud, but that doesn't really convey any meaning. Last one, inevitable means unavoidable. Now let's get back to the paraphrase. The speaker starts with a list. The first one is bragging about your family's heraldry. The second one, the empty ceremony of being in a position of power. And the third one is the beauty that can be obtained from wealth. All of these things are waiting for the unavoidable, inevitable time. All of these paths lead only to grave. Means everything will be destroyed in future time. So one should not mock or make fun of the poor. Now we will move forward to our stanza number 10th. Nor you, ye proud, impute to these the fault, if memory over their tomb no trophies raise, where through the long drawn azile and fretted vault, the pealing anthem swells the note of praise. The speaker has more advice to proud rich people. He addresses them as ye proud and tells them not to blame these dead poor people if they don't have fancy monuments over their graves. More personifications. Again, it's like the speaker is displacing blame. He says that the memory failed to put up fancy trophies or monuments. But really, wouldn't that be the responsibility of the families of the dead people? But of course, the dead guys in the churchyard are mostly poor farmers, so obviously their families wouldn't be able to afford a fancy monument. So, the speaker shifts the blame onto personified memory. The last two lines of the stanza describe the church itself, the place where the monuments might be displayed. The church has a long drawn corridor which has a carved vault, means full of pomp and show. Now we will move forward to our stanza number 11th. Can storied urn or animated bust back to its mansion call the fleeting breath? Can honor voice provoke the silent dust, or flattery soothe the dull cold ear of death? This stanza is a pair of rhetorical questions. The speaker is still addressing the proud, hoity-toity readers, the ones that he imagines might have mocked the lovely farmers in the churchyard. He asks them whether a fancy urn means a container to hold a dead person's remains, or a really lifelike bust. Bust means a statue of a person's head and shoulders, in this case to commemorate a dead person, could call the breath back to a dead person and make him breathe again. Except he doesn't say so quite that directly, he uses a metaphor. The dead person's body in a mansion is a mansion, and the speaker personifies the urn and the bust, asking if they can call the dead person's breath back to the mansion of their body. Second rhetorical question, the speaker asks if the voice of honor, another personification here, can provoke the silent, dusty remains of a dead person to speak again, or whether flattery, another personification, can make the cold ear of death, yet another personification. Here we can say many personifications are used here. The answer of both of those rhetorical questions obviously is no, of course not. Thank you.